we're going to start with the why sustainability, why we need to be talking about this. So, Thomas, I'll come to you first at Booking.com, and basically, I know you're approaching it from a marketing angle as well. And why do we need to be using marketing to get across a message of sustainable hospitality?
Yeah, so at Booking, we think it's a core value. We see shared responsibility to make sure that there's a planet worth experiencing. What many people see is the front-end designs, which enable the customer to find more sustainable options, but it gives a reason for accommodations to continue to invest in sustainability. It depends on why you come to this topic. Is it because you want to stand out? Is it because you want to claim a space that hasn't been claimed? Or is it because you're interested in making sure that you can sustain your business? So it's kind of the main reasons we see from accommodations.
And do you see it as an opportunity to sort of change the narrative really around sustainability? Or I think we were talking about sort of from a storytelling angle as well. It was important.
Yeah, it depends again on where the customer is in relation to this topic. Some customers are really leaned in and some don't really understand the topic. It's the same with accommodations. So we spend a lot of our time trying to understand and segment our communications to both parties to make sure that they buy in into the topic and make sure that they're engaging with it properly.
Thank you, Thomas. And we're going to be hearing a little bit more. I know you want to ask even the audience some question a little bit about their sustainability journey. I'll come to you next, Rachel, as well. I believe you own, is it 50 short-term rentals in the New Forest, I think?
I'd dearly love to own them. And if I did, I wouldn't be here, no offense.
You've got 50 on your platform, but you know, how would you add to Thomas? Why do we need to be broadening the message of sustainability through marketing?
I think in marketing, I prefer to talk about the kind of the back end of this first, because you can't do the front end of it and not deliver it, because otherwise you know, majoritively all of us are checking people in through the Death Valley of self-check-in, right? Like there's no humanity there's no values share when you check in at a lot of properties. And you don't get to meet someone. So suddenly going into a house where you've sold, you know, green this, eco that, and then someone checks in, and then guess what? All the green and eco is hopefully in some ways hidden, because it should be the insulation, it should be the double glazing windows. It's none of it's sexy, right? And we're in a tourism industry. We're meant to be selling sexy. It's meant to be great. You know, meant to go on holiday, nice, comfortable, relaxing, blah blah blah. And we've just been sold this doomerism experience for such a long time in sustainability that actually transferring that into something that is marketable is really hard. So I kind of chunk it down into things that are easy, and I put my company through a B Corp certification a little while ago, and you know, it's one of the things I'm most proud of. And Raoul, who's here from Loughlin Parks, is another. He's here somewhere. He's there. Talk to him later. He's a very great guy, and he's just the same with his business. And you kind of take the values of sustainability and you use them. So instead of it being this kind of amorphous, horrible thing that you can't fit in a wheelbarrow, I'm a farmer. So we go for things like clean air, right? It's important, and carbon is king, obviously, really unfortunately, but start with stuff that helps people understand it. So don't talk about carbon, talk about clean air. Talk about getting healthy and using the bike. Set your web pages up so you prioritize the bike information before the car information. It's really, really straightforward to do that. Talk about nature regeneration. Talk about cleaning, you know, no plastics. Break it all down into things that people actually care about, and then align it with their values so that you're not appealing to just the ethical traveller. That's really tricky. I mean, who here, proper question, hello, right? Who here would spend £4.50 on a strange eco soy latte just for a try? Come on, show of hands, people. Okay, we've got a few. Everyone really hates soy. Okay, all right. But if it was better marketed than me, then you give it a go, right? Who would go, I'm going to go away with my partner and spend $2,500 on this amazing eco hotel, which isn't really marketed very well, and you can't really see much in the photos, but it might be okay. Oh, what if they're really negative, and what if they don't let me have a big bath? Right? Who is going going to do that? Nobody. It's too big a risk. You can't do it. So we've really got to help people make that decision and make it simpler for them and break it down.
Ufi, is that something you would concur with at the EEA?
Well, I think we're going to talk about the what later, and then I'd love to talk about greenwashing. But before we get there, you asked, I thought the first question was about why.
Yeah.
So I just want to move away from this philanthropic, marketing-oriented view to a different lens. And it's very simple. Look, governments around the world, over 140 governments around the world, central banks around the world, the stock exchanges in the world, so all the big financial markets of the world, have all agreed that by 2050, our entire global economy is supposed to be net zero carbon. Now, according to UNEP, over 35% of the CO2 and greenhouse gas emissions are emitted by the built environment, buildings. It doesn't matter whether it's net zero for long term or short term, it's buildings. So that means that when we get to 2050, all the buildings that are supposed to be net zero carbon, guess what? 8 out of 10 of those buildings are already here. So the governments are going to clamp down on everybody that owns or operates a building for commercial purposes and eventually residential to ensure that you will get your properties fit for purpose and net zero carbon in time for them to meet their political targets. It's that simple. So you can put aside all the philanthropic views, whether you believe in climate change or not, it really doesn't matter. The reality is you are all going to be forced to do this by law. So why? Even if you don't believe in climate change, which I hope there's no one in the room that still has that view, but even if that's the case, why? Because if you don't, you're not going to be able to be in business much longer.
That's quite a stark message then. But well, you mentioned there the what, so I'll come to that right away actually. And when we talk about sustainability a lot, but we really wanted here to have a really meaningful conversation about it. So I'm always asking quite a simplistic question when I say, what does sustainability actually mean to you, and what is the importance of educating people around it, Ufi?
Well, I mean, I hear all the time people saying, oh, sustainability, so nobody really knows what it means, there's so many different definitions, and all this nonsense. And I'm sorry, but it is all nonsense. Believe it or not, there is a formal definition of what sustainability means. There is a formal definition of what ESG means. It has been adopted by all the banks. In fact, today, there has been new pressure by the European Union to force banks to take into consideration ESG risk when they are deciding on giving any loans, any debt capital to any properties. So all of this is coming through in this way. So in terms of what, I would definitely suggest that one thinks very carefully. At a minimum, you've got to think about whether or not you're going to continue to be in business soon or not. So compliance, a lot of the emphasis around at the moment is on energy, right? It's on whether or not you've got your EPC rating, for example, which I guess everybody in the room is familiar with what EPCs are. But we're moving into minimum energy efficiency standards, which is the MEES. There's all sorts of regulation which is coming through on energy. So if you're not doing anything else, focus on getting your energy reduction programs into place, and also focus on understanding where you stand today as an asset. What is your performance? And does that make sense in business terms, in commercial terms, in financial terms? You've got to start thinking about ESG and sustainability in financial business terms. So translating everything into what is the commercial impact on my business? Not just cutting costs, but also what does it mean in terms of risk and prospect, and how does that make me stand out? I think that really should be the what. This is about business, guys, it's about smart business. And really start rethinking, change the mindset, and start thinking about this as being integrated in every single business decision that you make.
It's up on screen at the moment, but you've also recently launched an ESG educational program as well. Do you want to just sort of touch on that?
Yes, so we did some anecdotal research with the industry and asked people, okay, do you have somebody responsible for sustainability in your business? Many people would say, yes, we do, or I'm the responsible person for sustainability, fantastic. And the next question was, have you ever had any formal training on sustainability? And then the answer usually turns out to be no. Well, for that, that's a massive, massive gap. And because sustainability has moved on, the world of greenwashing, what we call ESG 1.0, is really a thing of the past. Regulators have changed that. They've put the nail in the ground, and we're now moving into a completely different era. So that's why we've launched an ESG executive education program together with King's College London, the King's Business School. It's there for people who are executives, so people who, this is not a degree, this is a really short-term course, 6 months, a couple of hours a week, just to make sure that we can actually educate the market on what is sustainability, what is the regulation that you're going to have to comply with, how do you go about doing it, to really equip everybody with the tools and information they need specific to the hospitality industry.
Thank you for that, Ufi. Thomas, with Booking.com as well, I've been doing all my research about your mission towards guiding towards sustainability, and I think you back that up actually with being a founding partner of Travelist. You also partner with the Global Sustainable Tourism Council as well. So, what does sustainability mean to Booking.com? Why is it important?
Well, we see exactly what you're saying play out. There is this legislation that's coming, but if you put yourself in the position of many accommodation providers in Europe, for example, many of them are SMEs, sustainability gets deprioritized because they're trying to keep the doors open. It's the same family members who are doing check-ins, who are servicing the rooms, etc. And unfortunately, sustainability always gets deprioritized, although there's many accommodations who are concerned about the increased cost of energy, and they're not making the connection of, well, if you were to invest in sustainability, you would also reduce your energy consumption. So what we try to do is support accommodations on this journey. The front end part is one bit, the filtering and tagging on the front end, but we invest a lot into education. In our partner hub, we have a sustainability handbook, which is simplifying the language around sustainability, getting accommodations to start on their journey. And then we write that in connection with experts in the industry on specific topics, trying to support them. But we also know that it takes a concerted effort, right? This isn't some win for us to have the most sustainable supply or to win from sustainability. We all need to do this together. So we join forces with the Travelers Coalition, which we're a founding member of, and we speak openly about the challenges of sustainability and how you can support accommodations, specifically in the accommodation working group. There is an aviation working group. On how they can act in a more sustainable way. We created the travel sustainable model that we have implemented. We have a hotel version and a short-term rental version. We've implemented that and we're collecting information from our accommodations, but we've also shared that model with our competitors, like Expedia is using the same attribute set, Google are also working on it, and other Travelers members are working to implement the same modelling. Because the point is that legislation is there, but working back from that, how do you start today? Because it can feel like a bit of a mammoth task, so you need to break it into sizable chunks, build confidence, and then move forward so that you can meet these requirements that are coming.
Thank you, Thomas. And Rachel, if I turn to you, I've seen a lot of statistics that I didn't almost know what to quote here, but it appears, from my perspective, that people want to travel sustainably, but how exactly do you go about changing that mindset? You speak on panels and you're vocal on this topic, so what's your kind of perspective about how we bridge that intention gap?
You mean the intention action gap? Right. I think Thomas is the one to talk about the stats here, but I would hope that most people in the room are aware of them, and maybe Thomas can do a quick segue on some of those stats before I answer that to give context.
From the consumer side, the majority of customers want to travel more sustainably. It's around 78%. Many of them have blockers to acting in a more sustainable way. Not enough information is provided. They don't know how to find more sustainable options. They don't necessarily trust or understand sustainability labels that exist already. From the accommodation side, accommodations want to act in a more sustainable way, but there are 9 main barriers to that, which is complexity, lack of understanding, lack of skill set, lack of investment, and specifically in short-term rentals, you don't have many certifications that are specific to this sector, and most of the certifications are for standard hotel accommodation. Sorry. I think it's gone in and out though, right?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so there's a lot of confusion from the point of view of the delivery side, is what are we appealing to, how do we reach people? I'm involved with a Travel by B Corp collective, who are 22 companies based here in the UK, who are, funny enough, all B Corps, and delivering travel around the world. Rouse Company is one of them. And it was very interesting to work with a lady in, I believe she's in Romania, and she was a behavior economist, right? So she's looking at people want to do stuff, but they're not actually doing it. And particularly in tourism, for a long time, we've had a sort of them and us situation where you have the owner of the house going, well, my guests, oh my God, they're granny charging their car, and they leave all the windows open, and you know they're just so terrible, and I'm paying the bill, right? There's a lot of resentment towards that. And then we have the guest going, well, God damn it, the owner hasn't put in double glazing. You know, what the hell? This welcome pack is from Tesco's. They obviously don't give a crap about the environment. And so there's this very much this friction. And so the behavior economist approach was really interesting, because she said they are coming for a holiday. Like, they're being good for 51 weeks of the year. They genuinely think that, yeah, right, me too. It's my holiday. I want to have a holiday. You know, even sustainability consultants and, you know, people who own B Corp companies, they behave different at the weekends. You know, hell, I have a bit more chocolate at the weekend. I ate 10 on Friday night. And when we are on holiday and we're behaving in a hedonistic way, we need our suppliers to set us up in a situation, and we have to take responsibility for that as hosts, so that we're doing 95% of the job for them, so that they don't feel guilty. And I often talk about this brand values of delight and de-guilt, right? We all know what delight is. It's calling up your holiday company and you're getting like horses clip-clopping down the street and the voicemail over the top, right? It makes you go, oh, that's so funny, that's so sweet. Immediately you want to like them no matter what they say on the phone next. And then this issue of de-guilt is interesting, because in the UK census of November 22, so very recently, was that 75% of the UK adult population has eco-anxiety. That's massive, and 83% of children have that. Well, those numbers have probably gone up now as the climate situation gets worse. And that's not going to ever change in our lifetimes. And so how we speak to this value of de-guilt in tourism is that we have to do things for people. We have to set things up so that there isn't a resentment. And it was very interesting talking to Zina, and I can't remember her, I can't even pronounce her surname, from Intrepid. Thank you very much. Yeah, Zina's cool, she's a cool girl. And she was saying that, does sustainability create added income for them as a company? Do they sell on it? And she said no, it doesn't. But 95% of people who stayed with them say they would stay again or travel with them again, because it was so obvious in their delivery that they felt incredibly loyal to them. So that is a really interesting, in terms of what Ufi was saying about treat it as a corporate risk and treat it as a business opportunity. Absolutely align sustainability into all of your delivery. Do it in the ways that we talked about before. Break it down. But it is a value, you know, but you have to do it for people. You can't just expect them to do it. Don't just go for the ethical traveller.
Thank you, Rachel. And Ufi, I mean, Rachel talks about eco-anxiety and this de-guilt, but what do you maybe see as some of the key challenges or opportunities towards a sustainable future? I know you perhaps wanted to touch on the legislative side a little bit more as well.
Well, I think one stat that hasn't been mentioned is a big stat, which is in 70% of people generally across Europe. Actually, this was a poll done by many governments across Europe, including the United Kingdom. And people are just fed up with greenwashing, and they want greenwashing stamped out. And the reality is our industry is responsible for the term greenwashing. Many people don't know that. In 1986, an environmentalist by the name of Jay Westerveld was in a bathroom in a hotel, and he saw the little sign that says, please reuse your towels to help us to save water and save the planet. And he went away and he proved that the hotel could not substantiate their environmental claims with robust evidence, but they could certainly substantiate the commercial gains that they were having from reduced laundry. So that became the official definition of greenwashing. It is the definition today which is being applied by courts in climate litigation cases around the world against Volkswagen, against Deutsche Bank, against the big brands, because governments are starting by naming and shaming the big guys. But the consumers are fed up as well. And the consumers don't even believe a lot of the green certifications. Why? Because a lot of the green certifications are just check boxes, which basically you can say, well, this is, yeah, I've done that, I've done that, I've done that, I've done that, without any independent qualified verification of the output. And even certification programs like B Corp, which probably is one of the better ones, there's been many court cases recently around organizations which are B Corp, which really shouldn't have been. So the consumer is just overwhelmed by a lot of greenwashing. And what we believe in my organization is that we have to come together as an industry, cut the crap, and actually pull together some serious benchmarks which allow consumers to say, okay, this is good, this is bad. And that's got to be based on scientifically robust, evidence-based approaches to sustainability. That's what we project.
And I think reading just recently in the Financial Times that the EU's banned climate neutral claims by 2026.
Oh my God, it's terrible. Just yesterday there was a sustainability event for our industry, and they launched a climate neutral, net positive, title. It was like, I can't believe it. This is, as I said, times are changing, and it's really difficult because we're in this bubble at the moment, this transition period in terms of sustainability, but things are moving very, very fast. And organizations, even those like Booking.com, are going to have to think very hard about how they are judging their sustainability filter. How does their sustainability filter actually work? How are they deciding what genuinely is a sustainable accommodation and what isn't? What comes out when the consumer does a sustainability search? Even they're going to have to think very hard about that. Otherwise, they're going to be one of the big brands that are picked on by the EU or by the UK for a name and shame case in greenwashing.
Do you want to come in on that, Thomas, about the commitment towards sustainability?
Sure, we remain committed to solving the problem that accommodation is act in a more sustainable way. Consumers are looking for more sustainable options. They want to act in a more sustainable way, they just are not so sure how to. You're absolutely correct. This legislation will have an impact on anybody who is saying something is more sustainable than something else, but it still isn't finalized. It's not clear. Sorry. The language in the text isn't clear. The EU has always banned greenwashing. Now they make very, very clear guidelines, which is something we've been looking for. So we're excited to see how it comes out. And it'll be 2026, 2027 before.
And for those businesses maybe with limited resources and they're trying to balance profit and sustainability at the same time, maybe what would be your sort of advice for them?
That's why the Travel Sustainable Programme was created, was to support SMEs through this green transition, because this legislation is setting clear guidelines, but it's not making it clear how it supports SMEs through this transition. It does make carve-outs for micro SMEs, but still they can't just be left behind. They have to be supported to act in a more sustainable way. And so the programme is about a transition, a pathway. We start off with very simple sets of questions. We get the accommodations engaged, and then we release additional questions. And the idea is that we bring accommodations closer and closer to third-party certifications, and hopefully that jump that they have to make from where they are today and where they need to be is much smaller now we've supported them. Because our understanding is that certifications are the gold standard. That's where we want accommodations to be. But we see our role as enabling those accommodations to start on that journey, because as it stands today, they don't feel confident or comfortable to.
Thank you, Thomas. Rachel, I'll turn to you. I saw you nodding there. But as you know, we've got a very diverse audience today, and we have, I think, some small homeowners as well. What would be your advice to people with, say, limited portfolios of properties? That why should they be interested in investing in sustainability, even if it costs a little bit more money?
I think we play what Ufi said, times 10. This is like business critical. it's not possible to be in business. Or I tell you what, get a retirement plan, like transition out. Definitely do that, because you can't keep going. It's not allowable to keep going anymore. It's like health and safety in the 80s, or wearing seatbelts. You know, we can change. Humanity can change. It's possible to change, and I guess I thought of it in my business. I was like, we are a super influencer in a sense because we're a small agency, but we can still influence change. So we took the approach of doing a load of the research and a load of the homework, and I strongly suggest any of you who are in the same influencer situation as well, do the same thing. Set up your own business systems so that you can enable them to change more easily. So give them more flexibility in the areas that they need to be flexible in. And in order to do that, go and talk to them about what they're stressed about and what they need help with. Because sometimes it is the little things. You know, I've written countless blogs on, you know, things that you can do, 6 things that you can do that are going to be basically free, which is changing your firelighters, changing your cloths, cleaning cloths, changing your cleaning materials so that you're bulk buying green materials. It's actually cheaper, and your cleaners aren't going to go away with a hacking cough. You know, really, it's not okay. I wouldn't want my child to work with some of the chemicals that I'm asking my cleaners to work with. That's not right. That's just not right. So when you start doing those things, you start getting somewhere, then you start engaging your guests. They feel their skills. It's an important thing to do. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. Where it starts costing money into this sort of the energy efficiency, etc., then yes, it's like paying your insurance premium up front. But you need to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for all of your incredible insights today. I'm wondering if we have any audience questions. I know it's quite a highly charged topic. Yeah. So would you throw over the match?
Always. Okay. Hey guys, thanks for the overview. My sense is that we expect people in the room who are property managers to care about sustainability, but we forget that people, humans in general, are very lazy. And I feel like with things like this, it's like we agree that legislation is coming as you've outlined, but not a lot happens, and then everything happens at the end. So for me, it's how do you motivate people to get ahead of what they have to do when they know at some point mass adoption will come. And for me with Booking.com, it's like, yeah, if I do this stuff with Hispanica or the filters, like how much money do I get now? And a lot happens when the path to profitability becomes clear. So that green cocktail of like, yes, we'd all like to travel sustainably, but who would here travel sustainably to this event? 7 out of 10 might have said we'd like to, but who actually did the research and traveled sustainably? I would say 1 out of 10. So what's the advice to people as to what can we do now, and particularly to the Booking.com representatives, like what can we do now and why? Like what numbers do you see for people who have that badge versus those who don't in terms of conversion as an example?
I think there's 2 questions in that, like what can I do now and what is the conversion number. So what you can do now is break it into sizable chunks, like I said before. Like, yes, for many legislation will come and it will impact different people at different times depending on the size of your organization, and potentially may never impact you if you fall into this micro SME place. That's not to say that the customer is looking for it. We know from research that customers intend to travel more sustainably. They feel better when they do so, when the accommodation is enabled certain attributes. They're not necessarily willing to make changes, and they're expecting the accommodations to do those things. And it's an opportunity for you to connect with the customer, bring them on the journey. It's not that any of this stuff is sexy like you mentioned before, but you can start to bring them on that journey with you when they're checking in and all the communication you have with them. When it comes specifically to the conversion metrics, so our team, up until recently, we weren't responsible to add new segment types or to add a new customer stream. We were able to take customers who were booking and move them on to more sustainable offerings. Until this point, until the start of this year, we didn't have a customer-facing product team, so everything we did was always partner-facing. But this year we're working to prove or disprove many different hypotheses to see what we get out of it. So it's not necessarily about increased conversion, but are they staying for longer? Are the review scores higher? And so by the end of this year, hopefully we'll have some numbers that we can share. But we've done a lot of stuff on the front end. Some of the changes you see are quite small and maybe unnoticeable, but they all have impact, and we're working towards having this positive impact. So don't have an answer for you, unfortunately, but we will have in time.
Can I have a go at that?
Yeah.
I think it's a systemic issue, like you said, it's a cocktail. So if the pictures aren't effectively representing a greener stay, I don't know, you guys are this is not my job, right? How important are the pictures when you're flogging something? How, you answer.
Yeah, at my time there being me, pictures are the number one way to differentiate yourself.
Number one?
Yeah.
Right, okay. So if I go onto my Pinterest and I'm trying to work out what a green kitchen looks like, genuinely the only difference is spider plants. I am not joking, right? I type in luxury kitchens, I type in eco kitchens, and I get spider plants. Yeah? So if that's the only difference, and we've got huge numbers of people, like we've said, who are really aware of greenwashing, it is extremely difficult for people to buy in a trustworthy way. And we've already had the conversation, right, about I'm not going to spend my marriage on a £2,000 stay, which could be god-awful because they won't even let me have a bath, right? So there are many, many issues within this that need unpacking before we can look at numbers. But I do remember, because I'm a total dork, about a guy called Enrique Planas, who you probably know, who spoke on Deborah Labai's Green Path podcast, and if I think I'm right, he said the click to view stats when they tested green badging was 28% instantly, but the click to book was 10%. And I haven't heard him speak about that since, so he probably was like trying to hush it up, so sorry, Enrique. But it's quite interesting, because if then the images are the issue, then like there are a lot of areas to explore.
Can I just add from the cost side as well? I mean, ultimately we're all in business to make profit. Yeah, and we're not shy at all to say that our organisation stands for businesses who want to succeed in and profit from ESG. It's that simple. That's the business that we're in. We're helping to make profit from it. So yes, you can do a lot on the demand side, but you can also do a lot on the supply side. And there's some very simple things that can be done. So for example, I'll give you just one very quick example. I don't know how many of you have heard of voltage optimization, but the national grid in the United Kingdom pumps enough energy into the system. If you think of a hose and you think of lots of different spokes out to get enough water out to every single output, they put a lot into the main drive. So ultimately we're all receiving, in many cases, too much energy, and we're paying for that because it enters our buildings, our homes. This happens for houses as well. So one very simple thing that could be done is you can actually cut that, push the excess back onto the national grid. You've cut your energy usage, you've cut the cost that you're paying for energy, and you've cut your carbon emissions. And the second thing to say is, another thing that one of our members who owns 900 assets across Europe did was they said, okay, we're going to focus on energy to start with. How much energy can we cut across the portfolio with zero capex? We're not going to spend a penny. How much can we cut? Through purely behavioral change, they were able to cut 25%. Then they said, okay, just by doing small things like changing the light bulb, so low capex, what can we save? They found they could save a further 25%. So they cut their energy usage, they cut their carbon emissions, and they cut their costs by 50%. They're already halfway to net zero carbon. And that's been done with minimal capex. So that's why I'm saying this is actually about smart business, and it's about making profit and driving your profits up. And if you want advice on how to do it, there are organizations like ours that are full of information to help you to achieve it. But it's all about smart business. That's what sustainability is.